Well, hello, and welcome back to Divas, Diamonds, and Dollars podcast. We empower smart women with the tools and strategies for living a bolder, fuller life. Each week, we give you the key principles on personal finance, business, and leadership to help you get more life in your lifestyle. Follow us to get ahead and succeed at a higher level. We are your hosts, Larisa Troche and
I am Cecilia Benford.
well, I didn't give this month a clever name, but I hope that you've been following our trend, our month actually, which was on trends and how to use trends in your business. That's what we've dedicated this whole month to. So next time you'll get a cute name. But anywho, we hope that you've been following the earlier episodes and particularly how you can be more trend aware. I say this because I don't know why I'm so fascinated by it, but it's all the things you learned in school. Oh, I'll never use that again. And all of a sudden, it's all
Ooh.
coming back to me now. But anywho, we focused on the how, but no specific trend per se, except we just touched on it, right? We didn't take a deep dive as we like to do. But anywho, this year we have been committed to seeing what's on the horizon and what the impact is for you. Anywho, so sometimes what sounds like less than positive news just means maybe you just need to rethink where you invest your time for the best outcome. Perhaps you're considering a different business venture, even a new role, or career pivot. That's so, I was going to say scary. That's not it. But it requires some deep thinking, right? You want to be sure. Hint, you can't be sure. You take a chance, you roll the dice, and let's make it so. So, key national trends suggest you might, for example, want to target growth fields. Always a good idea. But in today's terms, that means especially where tech and sustainability, if you will, intersect with human services. Well, that is what we call a mouthful. And
Hmm.
we don't necessarily see the connectivity, but if you connect the dots, you will be more trend aware. So this area, if you will, is something that could offer better long-term opportunity. You don't always have to go for the short and quick fix, right? What's going to hold you for the long term? That's your what is it called? That's your framework for the trends that you adapt. Long term.
You know, I hesitate to say what I'm going to say, but you sort of reminded me, oh, well, my mind starts spinning on what you said, particularly about target growth fields. And so I just did back in time to fast forward all in one fell swoop. And that is when we entered our career fields, we had dreams and we thought this is the way life is going to be. And first for me, since I'm the elder, it did work out in terms of how career paths will form. And then things start getting a little trickier for you as you're, setting your heights to figure out whatever your final formula looks like or where you're going with maximizing your growth, right? And so then I added the next layer when I go out now, I look at various things. And so doctor's office. I was in a recent I've been in two different doctor's offices recently. And I'll tell you what I look at. It's always about the technology. First and foremost, I look and see if they're updated. What are they using? And then I look at what things haven't changed. And then I look at the personnel. All that is what we're talking about when you made the comment about integrating trends today. And everything today, honestly, is a lot about human services because as we have an aging workforce, that is what businesses have to figure out. The people who are up and coming, just entering the workforce, and then those, how do you serve and maintain those who are in a different sect, if you will. So you just made me think about all that real quickly. So with that being said, let me lay out a couple things when we talk about opportunity. Larisa and I always feel that everything is an opportunity. Even just what I said, that's how people who do something in business, everything is not necessary because you love it or like it. You're looking at what's an opportunity for you to build on, but what's an opportunity that's going to still be here. So that's where we are, ladies and gentlemen, if there are any. So, both companies and individuals are certainly experiencing uncertainty. We're all experiencing uncertainty today. And when I looked at some recent research, it's in various categories. So, one of the trends that affect, the economy, it affects what our inflation, it affects prices in the grocery store, right? It's how is our overall employment growth? Is it growing, stagnant, or not at all? Well, today it is slowing. I don't think that's a surprise for anybody. Certain high growth industries and occupations do stand out, and we'll, come back to that. Also, we're going to come back to certain skills do matter more than others. And that's where you read about Gen Z is saying, hey, we trained for this. Now, where have you left us? You know? And I think that I can empathize in that. That is, I mean, I know that's how I came up, is you went out and, you got your niche, you studied for, you were educated, you were trained, you were the best. And now we find out, well, that may not sustain you forever, right? Um, and it's more to me about how we were trained without any thought of maybe you always should be looking at something else too. And then the nature of entry level and early career roles are certainly changing. So that would impact you for one, if you have a business, who's going to be your customer base? You have to consider who your customer base is. And so that affects how you relate to people. I can't remember. I had a recent situation that I was looking at, and I remember thinking that the person or business, whatever it was, they had one part of it right, but they didn't have the other part as it related to looking at their customers and how they related to them. We all got customers. We all got customers, and I'm a customer, and so it matters. And then the labor market conditions in some areas are considered risk, and particularly, so companies are saying they don't know what to plan for, they don't know how to hire, um, they don't know what data to use and or feel comfortable that the data is correct. And I can relate to that because when I worked in contracts, I use those labor statistics. I would research the industries. It affects pricing. It affects, the numbers of employees that of a company that you're negotiating with. What's the sweet spot when you're working with these companies? So that's important. So right now, forecasters are providing inputs for the fourth quarter 2025 and early 2026. But they admit that there's uncertainty. And with uncertainty comes risk. So you have to be aware of that. But what does this mean to you personally? So remember, I've already sort of laid out that you are a customer and as an individual, but as a business, you have customers. So how do you put all that into play? So I was reading about following restaurant business is kind of a good study because restaurants come and go. Restaurants live and die on the fluctuations of the market. Most restaurants don't die because they didn't have good food. most of them who started up had good food. It's all these other things that we have talked about. It's the planning, it's the external factors, and then those internal factors in terms of was there a strategic plan? You know, how broad was your strategic thinking? So,
Well, not that it's specifically related to Divas, Diamonds, and Dollars, but restaurants historically have very thin margins. So if anything happens, they don't have a lot of wiggle room.
right, that's
And
right.
so yeah, that's a deep challenge. And for me, people who start don't let me slap down this rabbit hole, but people who start restaurants because they have a passion for
Mhm.
good food, for example, and or hospitality. But yeah, this is when passion has to be partnered, if you will, with substance and deep pockets because
That's right.
they're,
Substance,
it's tough.
deep pockets, and reality.
Well, yes,
That's,
there's
you
that.
know, that's what we're talking about here is reality. And so reality is not a Debbie Downer. Reality is just consider what the reality is. Growth is still happening, okay? And you want to be the one that's growing. It's just more modest. And in some cases, people, it's kind of like a football game. They want to throw the long bomb instead of, you know what, they could have got the 10 yards and made some gains, but they went for the touchdown and missed. Okay. I hope that analogy resonates with somebody. But it is that, you have to think about what you're doing. So the high pace hiring, when we came out of COVID, everybody needed somebody instantly. Hey, a warm body, people could name their price. Well, that's behind us. And no one should be surprised about that. So what that means to you is that's not the case anymore, right? If that's what you're still holding out for. Some people are holding out for various things. Um, you want to be aware that you now have to face the intensifying competition. So it's not, I mean, there's not a warm seat for everybody. So recognize that there is competition and it's not lukewarm competition. As I said, it's intensifying, which means it's heating up. Okay. We have covered the importance of learning technology over the past 2 months, and you probably just wondered, somebody probably wondered why did we spend the time? If you don't have any thought about technology, any understanding, I had a person ask me recently, I prepare lessons for my Sunday class to women. And she said, so if I wanted to teach and I don't have access to a computer, I can't present, and how did you put this little thing at the top? And I explained why I prepare these. And I said, well, that's our logo and why I felt it was important to put paper in front of people. We could do online, but this is a session of that may not be a good example, but the point is the things that I have to use to prepare. That's why I was trying to explain to her and why some people want that in terms of having something to look back at and her thing was, why can't I just come in and talk? Well, you can. So, but, or maybe you need to, find something that where you can start learning and doing your own preparation. Because it used to be we had things ordered for us. Well, a lot of times you got to figure out the best way to make it through your business. And even at work, some things you'll learn on the job, and some things to be better than others, you're going to have to learn technology and make it work for you and let it stand out. Okay. Um, I did, well, anyway, I don't want to digress. I could give you lots of examples where it's kind of fun to do that when you learn something and you look at the final product, something I did last week. Okay, well, so that segue is to say it should come as no surprise that investing time in both technological fluency. You don't want just a hit or miss. Technological fluency because you want it to work for you. You want it to, you want to be quick with it where there's some benefit to you and what you're either learning or presenting or trying to bring together. And certainly the human-centric capabilities. So I feel that a lot of things, what we do, I mean, I'm not talking about people who are IT experts because even they need some human-centric capability. Sometimes they're so IT techy, but they don't know how to do the other end of it, where who is your customer? How are they going to read this? How do they understand what you're trying to say needs to work? That's the human-centric capability, how people think, how they see, how they understand what you're presenting. When you can do both, you're technologically fluent and you know how to relate to people and they can see that that capability is a benefit to them, you will definitely be in a strong position. So you don't have to write code. That's not what we're saying. But certainly being able to work with technology is increasingly valued when you go somewhere else or whatever your business is. I know when I see Gee Whiz stuff, and my sister might be surprised because she's always one talking about Gee Whiz stuff. But no kidding, I do get the Gee Whiz stuff. I did something at home recently. It was kind of bugging me. It been sitting on the corner of my desk. I said, I gotta figure this out, I gotta figure it out. And lo and behold, when you figure it out, it's like, yes, it worked. And sometimes we just don't want to go through that. But when it's up here, it's increasingly valued, and you got to be able to communicate that. All right. Change your assumptions about rapid ladder style progression. Now, when I kind of, the particular way I came up in my career field, after a point, I opted for this style of progression. I mean, I had to meet certain criteria at each ladder, but I could see the ladder, I could see the step about when, as long as I did met certain objectives, excelled, stood out, I knew I could make the next progression up to a point. I mean, there was always that other point where, oh no, you got to do way more than that. It's no longer a ladder progression. It is now, something more broader than that. But the rapid ladder style projection, no, because companies at the end of the day, I don't want to say all they care about is profit, but that is their final, this is what we care about. And so, you need to seek roles that give you growth. Okay? The company's not going to do this for you. You need to seek roles that give you growth, exposure, and stretch assignments. And you can do that yourself. Somebody doesn't have to do that for you. It may be that you have to introduce the topic, you have to initiate what that might look like with an employer, or even somebody, a mentor that you're asking, hey, what would this look like if, I tried to do these things so that others could see how you have improved, worked your business, and that, hey, this person is really going places. So I spent some time over the past month looking at several leaders who did things like this in various corporations, businesses. It was really, really interesting to me. Different ages, different businesses, but the one common denominator was they had an idea, they perfected, they honed what their thought processes were, they made it work wherever they were, and they stayed with it to a point of recognition, and then they moved on. People were looking at them to move on and saying, look what they did over here. So, all CEOs are not like ancient people or old people. There's some very young CEOs out there over companies you would be surprised about. So make it happen for you. Build a portfolio that reflects skills plus achievements that matter. A lot of times we have achievements, but you have to kind of look at them. Do they matter to anybody else but you? How about, so I think one way to sort of end this, what does this mean to you, is ultimately, you need to be smart about being adaptable. If you're not adaptable, I've had those people, and yet they want to be compensated. Well, you don't even want to learn anything different. You want to tell the boss about this is my job, and it's like they ask you to do something else, and you don't even want to do that. That's not being adaptable, right? And why should you be compensated for that? So you want to be smart about being adaptable due to longer hiring timelines. If you got to show up differently somehow. And I think it's pretty devastating. I mean, what it's taking for some people who have master's degrees and can't get hired, or how long it's taken them. Now, the good side of that is hopefully I've seen people do some very unique things on their own to start businesses in um, different ways. I mean, I saw one this morning and I heard about one yesterday, and it's being creative. It's coming up with an idea and working your plan. So the, because it's more competition, what can you do that's different? The risk of stagnation or slower growth, that's the takeaway. That's a trend. So this should cause you to have plan B. I always believe in having plan B, where you bring immediate value because that's what someone's looking for. They really don't want to put you on a training program for 3 years or even 2 years for that matter. People just, it's unfortunate, even though having worked with a bunch of trainees in my past life, people do want to be trained, but you kind of got to reverse that trend because that's not what employers are looking for. And if you're in your own business, you got to train yourself, get your own training. So I hope that didn't scare you. I hope that just kind of let it sit with you and you found a deep pocket somewhere that you said, okay, I got to do something. Because I know when I was thinking about this episode, I was thinking about somebody I knew that I wanted to share this with because of how they think.
Well, you said a lot of things that had me nodding my head because as a hiring manager, I feel like the candidates have changed or the quality of the candidates have changed because they're so happy to show up and get that paycheck. Well, let me rephrase that. They're so happy to get that paycheck, but not so fond of showing up. People, the more recent hires are really big on taking this time off, and we're just like scratching our head like, what is going on? And then they'll be the first one to raise their hand and talk about a pay raise or when do we get this and when do we get that. Well, how about we rephrase that question? When have you done X, Y, and Z? Could we start the conversation at that end of the spectrum? So yeah, there are a lot of things are different. And to your point about seeking out roles that give me growth or you know, stretch assignments, I cannot sit still when I see something that needs to be fixed, and so I'm always stirring the pot. Um, but I think for the most part, always a qualifier, that it is well received because it's clear what my intentions are. It's just to improve processes and people. Uh, what's that? Oh, yes, using the new technology. Oh, my goodness. Anywho, so how about some practical suggestions for you? So Sarah mentioned a slew of things, but just breaking it down a little bit more in a different way. Where were you talking about it? If you're looking to change, you need to choose growth aligned sectors. That means up and coming, not stagnant, not yesterday's news, right? What's happening not even what's happening today, what's happening tomorrow. Consider fields like healthcare, health tech, cybersecurity. That's not going anywhere because every 5 minutes you know there's an incident.
Mhm.
Advanced manufacturing, such as for renewables, and then data and analytics, because as the technology grows, there is an outpouring of data which must be processed, processed and understood. We're not collecting data just to collect data. We need to know what to do with that information, and people who can break it down. I was going to say in layman's terms, but break it down into usable sound bites or usable pieces of information. Those people are going to be busy for quite some time. So that might be something that you can look at, especially for you now, very more interested in trends, right? They're out there and they're making work different.
Mm.
Showcase those hybrid skills. We talked about this whole month, okay, whatever I said, no cute name, but it was built around helping you know what to do with trends, how to find them and how to utilize them in your work. So when you look at, but we also said that yes, take this new information, but don't forget best practices, right? You need to be able to combine those two into a hybrid skill set. So, when you're, for example, building your resume or posting on LinkedIn, if you will, highlight not just the tools and technologies that you use, but how you apply them. Again, the whole point of this month of November, how do you apply them to drive outcomes? What problems did you solve using the data and machine learning? And how did you bring the stakeholders together for greater collaboration? So you must connect the dots for people. Don't make your resume a guessing game, and please goodness, don't make your resume a job description.
Mhm.
Not helpful.
Mhm.
Um, so one of our recommended practical favorites is having a continuous learning mindset. I'm 90% sure I just wrote those very words in a presentation that I'm working on. So
Ah. Mm.
I just cannot get away from it. And what I just got to really get carried away and say, I need you need to be in love with learning because things are happening so fast and you must be continuously learning. Even if you're in a stable role, not necessarily looking for a change. I'm not necessarily looking for a change right now. um, I'm still learning because uh, you got to keep it agile, mentally agile. You got to stay um, well, career agile in your career, but super necessary in your business because what's it called? Your business is based on serving your clients, and there will be a constant inflow and outflow. So, anywho, block out time to learn the new tools and technologies to soften those soft skills like leadership, communication, and change ability. People who just want to keep doing the same old things, oh, it makes my hair curl, sort of.
Mm.
So whether it's your business or career, these are the soft skills that are necessary to help you thrive and grow. And that's what it's all about. You want to continue to thrive and grow. And I don't talk about this much but I still believe in it so strongly, especially when I read an article, some person, I guess, I don't think she said she's trying to meet 100 people a month. I want to just really be more realistic and say 100 people a year. But still, you have to be proactive.
Mhm.
Most folks are not going to come knocking on your door. So network strategically, and especially in slower growth periods, knowing people and being visible helps. More jobs are still found through networking than through the want ads. So join professional groups, attend events, people, you must do some FaceTime. I know, okay? But you got
Mhm.
to do it. So either virtual or in person, look for mentors. Just because you know a lot doesn't mean you don't need some support to a sounding board or even just to help you what's it, implement your newfound knowledge, right? So look for mentors still. Now, all that still, you need to maintain a level of flexibility, especially early in your career. If you're just starting out, I every time I read somebody say, well, I can't get a job with this degree. Well, you know what? There's something else out there that you can try until the tide turns. Don't just sit still and say I can't because. Oh my
Right.
gosh, don't do that. Learn lateral moves, still work. Project-based roles, why not? Remote hybrid roles might open more faster than waiting for the perfect job. I mean, if you got it like that, deep pockets maybe, but what are you losing while you're not working and you're waiting for perfect?
Mm. Yeah, right. That's
And
that.
those skills that Cecilia already just said, that those skills that you paid good money to learn, how fast are they going to go obsolete if you don't get out there and use them and build on them?
Mhm.
So I'm suggesting that you don't wait. So the remote hybrid role has become a bit of a challenge. Let me say, for example, people trying to take advantage of that. That's a whole topic in our office.
Mm,
Um, you know, and and you've already seen all the headlines about the back and forth on return to work, right? It's a thing. And so you really have to remain nimble and you really have to make some choices. So also, why not monitor local and industry conditions? Because what you see on the news is broad based
true.
generally. You got to have, as they say, consider the source. Are you watching the local news, the national news? And what you're seeing on the screen or on the headlines, not necessarily what's happening in your very own neighborhood. So how do you find out what's going on there? You could check with your chamber, for example, but there is region specific or industry specific information that you could find out about in your neck of the woods, not so much what's happening everywhere. Same conversation with real estate. People are like, oh my gosh, the sky's falling, the sky's falling everywhere. But again,
Mm,
location, location, location is all very specific. Same thing goes with your career and or your industry. So as we bring this puppy on home, I did want to touch back on what we mentioned last week in terms of trends. And I said the reason I'm so passionate about helping women is the financial trends. There's so many things that really have not changed still after all this time. As a matter of fact, Cecilia, I I I mention this, I don't know, periodically. Uh, our company uh, developer has projects for survivors of domestic violence, right? And so I just really, that is a very, there's a word missing there, but when you, in terms of people having choices, right, you don't want to stay in a bad situation because you feel like you have no choice. And
right.
so I'm sensitive to that and what I can do about that. So I actually reached out to someone who um, was a connected suggestion on LinkedIn who started a nonprofit to help survivors of domestic violence in terms of teaching them some business and or career skills so that they know that they have choices, right? Anyway, that was a little bit of a detour, but it's all I'm just very sensitive to women and money, and I want them to have that financial confidence so they can step out and take a change. So that was one of the trends that we touched on last week, how women feel of the things that are happening in terms of women and money. So I'm not going to repeat that necessarily, but I will just say the rest of the sentence, right? There's systemic challenges and life events. All that stuff happens every day. So, the impact of caregiving and health costs, women, typically we're the caregivers, right? And how expensive is that becoming? And people, every time I hear about some woman dropping out of the workforce for who knows what particular reason, don't say because her hubby gonna take care of them. Like, ugh.
Mm.
Um, when you drop out of the workforce, you lose so much time. But the important thing is, I am reminded periodically that healthcare, once you get into your 40s and beyond, is so critical, darlings. You must, and it's so expensive. So that to me is why do not walk away from those benefits if you don't have to. That was my whole thing. Because when you get older, let the record reflect, things start to happen.
Mm.
So you need that. And retirement literacy. I mean, those are two awkward words to go together, but again, being in affordable housing, you see things, right? Social Security just does not get you that far, especially
Right.
if you had an entry level job or a job that was, I'm just going to say administrative or frankly not paying very well. That means your Social Security is not going to be that good. You cannot say, oh, I'm just going to live on my Social Security check. You're going to be very hungry, first of all. And seniors are the largest growing population of the unhoused. So I need you to have a plan. I need you to do something different. So you just need to you need to come talk to me. As Cecilia said, you can just talk to me.
Mhm.
Uh, the gender pay and wealth gaps, that's still so ugly. And why are we still talking about it? Because it still exists. There's so many things going on, and you look at your wealth building foundation, if you will, what you build upon. First of all, it does start with knowledge, having a plan, and yes, taking some action. So learning more about money and finance helps you it gives you that confidence to make those decisions. And women are historically better investors. That's not me. That's research. So if you would like to explore any of these ideas further, maybe it's time to reach out, get some questions answered, get some support in this area. So, um, I think this has been an interesting month, and I hope you found it interesting, and I hope you found it eye-opening. So, as we close out this segment, we'll first of all, even before November, we would do a women and trends episode right each month. So when we meet with you in our next free holiday month, y'all, the end of the year. Oh my gosh, she's here. We're going to go ahead and have part two of this particular trend watch episode. But forecasters, if you will, see, I already said this. I already put out fourth quarter 25, and they're doing their job. They're forecasting, otherwise looking into 2026 already. So data is only as good as the use you make of it. I suppose that's a very awkward statement to say. Don't just take the numbers, just pay attention, but do
Mm.
something with the information that you get. So the Q4, well, we still have another several weeks. Was it 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 7 weeks? There's a number. We have several weeks left. So the final numbers won't be out until early 2026, but you do want to take a look at what really happened this year. And how does that impact what's going to happen in the year ahead? So, anywho, trends are only useful when they're actionable. So, instead of just knowing what's changing, you now have I don't use the word simple path, but you have a clearer path, perhaps, to apply what matters and, frankly, ignore what doesn't matter. You can't just be, getting whiplash on all the trends going back and forth. Remember, we said you need to choose what's important to you, and you can set up filters, if you will, to help wade through some of this information so that you're not consistently feeling like, oh my gosh, my hair is being blown back. I don't know. We just get to talking. So let me just wrap up with today's Divalicious Pro Tip, and we will release you into the wild so you can mull over all this information that you got. So adapt, evolve, and thrive in the face of change by embracing growth fields where tech and sustainability intersect with human services. That's huge. That's a lot. That's a lot. That is a lot. But the point is to look for the intersections and where you might best apply your skills. And for that, gentle persons, your head is probably spinning by now, so we're going to release you into the wild. Next week, we will just wrap up this month of trends, trend spotting, and acting on said trends. And with that, we will see you next time. Ciao.